Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Climate of Sport podcast with me, Claire Poole. It's a pleasure to be back with you this week. I've been in Paris for Roland Garros, which was wonderful to see some tennis played in Philippe Chatrier with the court roof closed while I was there because of the rain and inclement weather, which is a big difference from last week, where all the headlines were about the 30-plus degree heat and players really being impacted by that. So a completely different landscape this week. The British Association of Sustainable Sports conference is going on. So for those who are joining there, we hope you're having a great time and we look forward to hearing the news coming out of that. It's a shame to have missed it with the overlap with Roland Garros. It's 1 week till the FIFA Men's World Cup 2026. So our timelines are absolutely chock-a-block with lots of different news around that. And we'll come to a story on that as well today. Of course, a week could not go by without us talking about the FIFA Men's World Cup. Petrolhead Jeremy Clarkson came out with a U-turn on climate change, which is sort of a sport and climate story because obviously he had up Top Gear for so many years. A lot of motorsport enthusiasts are very big Jeremy Clarkson's fans. And previously, whilst not being a climate change denier, he kind of minimised it. And now obviously he is a farmer and he is seeing the impacts in real time and has come out this week to say that climate change is massively impacting what he's doing. So that's another bit of news of some of the headlines that have been going on this week. June is absolutely chock-a-block with sporting events. So we're excited for an incredible Northern Hemisphere summer of sport to begin. There's going to be nothing but sport on the TV. But let's get on to this week's climate hat-trick. We've got 3 stories to talk about. And the first one, we come to the FIFA Men's World Cup, of course, and we're talking about the team's invisible performance opponent. Everyone's starting to talk about who's going to win the World Cup. We're seeing a lot of information about who the odds are on and player performance and who's injured and who's performing well and who made the teams. But actually now what's come through is one of the biggest stories is not team players and injuries, but how teams are going to perform, of course, in the heat. And new research out from Climate Central suggests that nearly every match of the tournament, the performance is going to be impacted. So we are all getting pumped to watch, hopefully, what we would hope to be high intensity, high tempo, exciting football. But these climate impacts, according to new research from Climate Central, are saying, nearly every match could be played at a slower tempo. That is because 28 degrees Celsius or 82.4 degrees Fahrenheit is a threshold linked to declines in player performance. Researchers found out of the 104 matches that are going to be played, 97 of them are going to likely be impacted in terms of player performance and safety, but also match tempo, tactics, and the overall style of play. Friend of the podcast and footballer, Norwegian World Cup team member Morten Thorsby said when heat impacts sprinting and overall intensity, it changes the way football is played and not for the better. Alex Jacobs, who's a professional player formerly with the Jamaican Premier League, thinks the heat, it might just be the difference maker this summer. England player Ollie Watkins said in response to being asked for the weather on the first day of their training camp, it's a struggle. It's the first day. It's a struggle, but it's going to get us prepared for the matches. And France's World Cup conditioning has begun. And on a recent TikTok video, Kylian Mbappe is seen in training saying, I was really struggling due to the heat. So heat is going to be, of course, a big story. But what's interesting from our perspective is that whilst the listeners of this podcast and those more broadly who are interested in this topic won't be massively surprised about this news, this data and research shows that even if you don't care about climate change and you are really into football and you're excited about the World Cup, the fact that performance is going to be impacted and we might see a slower tempo, less exciting football being played, I wonder if that's going to get people more interested or understanding the climate impact because it's actually going to change the way we see football being played. So we'll watch out for that. The second story in our climate hat-trick this week is a long one, but if you haven't heard of it, hopefully this is going to be a précis to get you up to speed. So story 2 is Patagonia versus Pattie Gonia. Let me go on. Have you been following the battle between outdoor brand Patagonia and drag performer, climate activist and community organizer Pattie Gonia? If not, This is a quick précis to get you up to speed. Okay, and we're going to include a timeline in this as well. So for the avoidance of doubt, while I'm talking about this, I'm going to call the outdoor brand Patagonia, and I'm going to call the drag performer Pattie. Just for those who aren't watching this on video with closed caption, if you're just listening, then you know who I'm talking about. Okay, let me take you back. October 2018, Wyn Wiley, who's been using the name Patagonia as their drag performer since October 2018. The entire joke, obviously, as someone who is outdoorsy and is bringing drag into nature and hiking and the outdoors. It's a riff on the word Patagonia. But over the years, Pattie has actually become a hugely successful environmental advocate, raising more than $3.7 million for nonprofits and building a community around climate action and LGBTQ plus inclusion. So that's 2018. Jump forward 2022 to 2025, Patagonia says it spent several years talking with Pattie about trademark concerns and trying to find a solution that would allow the activism and the environmental advocacy to continue without creating brand confusion, in case you are mistaking your fleeces with drag. September 2025, Pattie files a trademark application covering clothing, merchandise, advocacy, marketing, and related activities under the Patagonia name. January 1st, 2026, Patagonia files a federal trademark lawsuit arguing that Pattie's name, trademark applications, and merchandise could cause consumer confusion and infringe on its trademarks. The company is only seeking $1 in damages, but this is the important bit. It wants Pattie blocked from registering the trademark and from selling certain merchandise under the name. So that's the history of so far. And then this is what's happened in the last week or so. So May 2026, Pattie takes to social media saying there have been discussions going on, but they are now going public about the dispute, saying it's a strange use of time and money for a company that claims to share the same climate goals. Meanwhile, people from actual Patagonia, the place, the actual region in Argentina and Chile, are watching this unfold and saying, hello, we were here first. Public support has pretty quickly seemingly rallied to the greater part behind Pattie. A few days after Pattie took to social media with these comments, Patagonia publicly laid out what it said will resolve the dispute. 3 things. 1, withdraw all trademark applications. 2, stop using Patagonia's logos and branding elements. And 3, stop selling and promoting apparel and other products as Patagonia. Pattie's response followed pretty quickly, saying the first 2 points are acceptable, but the third is a deal breaker because it would block partnerships, merchandise, and other fundraising work that helps pay for the education and the advocacy and the climate activism that they are actually famous for, citing that Patagonia should understand this business model because there has to be a commercial arm to bring in money to fund the advocacy as well. The wider debate actually has become as interesting, I think, as the lawsuit itself. There was a really great piece for Heated. Journalist Emily Atkins spoke with a trademark law professor, Alexandra Roberts, from Northwestern University, I believe, who pushed back on some of the talking points circulating online. And some of these are really interesting, so I'll share them. 1, the question was asked, can you trademark a place name? And the answer from this expert, Professor Roberts, is yes. So let's think of Amazon and Jeff Bezos. That, of course, is also a place. Think of car names like Tahoe and Yukon. Yes, it is possible to trademark a place. A place name doesn't automatically stop someone from claiming trademark rights in a specific commercial category. Question 2, does Patagonia have to take legal action? The answer there is no. Patagonia has argued their trademark law requires it to aggressively defend its trademarks, but Professor Roberts says that is often overstated, and choosing not to sue one alleged infringer doesn't automatically weaken future trademark cases. And the example she cited was Taylor Swift. So if small Etsy organizations are selling Taylor Swift merch, Taylor Swift may choose not to sue, Claire from London, who's selling keychains that clearly aren't affiliated directly with Taylor Swift. But if a large commercial organisation slaps her image on something to sell it at scale, the right is reserved to take legal action. So it's not quite straightforward. And from what this professor is saying, there isn't that need to do this. And the third one, really less of a point, more just an overall observation that has it opened a can of worms for Patagonia? Yes, I think it has. People are now asking whether it's fair for a global corporation to build a brand around the name, imagery, and mythology of Patagonia, the place, without real permission from the people most connected to it. So where does that leave us? At least publicly, the ball appears to be back in Patagonia's court. We await their next Instagram update, and then we will, of course, keep you updated. But the big question, I guess, more broadly, is even whatever the answer to this lawsuit and this case comes to, there's a bigger ethical question, I think, of does defending your corporate brand this aggressively, ostensibly against an actual ally who you're on the same side of when it comes to ethos, does that protect the brand, or have they really damaged the brand in terms of the goodwill they've spent years, decades building among the very environmental community that helped make the brand hugely successful and iconic and having a brand worthy of protecting in the first place? Let's wait and see. Okay, our last story on the climate of sport hat-trick is Broncos, Barca, and blemished business backers. There's some alliteration for you. Okay, in the past week or so, similar stories have appeared across two continents. I thought it was just quite interesting in terms of the alignment. Corporations with, let's say, difficult environmental or social histories, partnering with sports clubs and foundations on sustainability and community impact. In Australia, Rio Tinto, a mining company, who are probably the most famous in the environmental community for destroying the Yukon Gorge caves in 2020 through one of their blasts. That was a site of profound Indigenous and archaeological significance, which, this is mind-boggling, showed 46,000 years of continuous human history that was destroyed because of their mining blast. Although that was legal, by the way, they didn't do anything actually illegal, but it's a more ethical, moral question. They are now collaborating with the Brisbane Broncos AFL players to design new reusable bottles as part of a push to get rid of single-use plastic in sport. In football, a similar theme in a different part of the world. In Colombia, the New York Times broke a story about FC Barcelona's foundation. They have a sponsor that's now outgoing, actually, called Gran Tierra, who are being linked to ongoing pollution issues in Colombia, including contaminated water, leading to health concerns for local Amazon region communities. Just two very different stories in very different part of the world, but with corporations that have some kind of history on the environmental or climate side, and the way they're working with sport now seemingly quite disparate to that. There isn't really an outcome from this. It's more just a bunch of questions. Are clubs genuinely weighing up the ethical risk of deciding to align with organisations? Are they not thinking about it deeply enough? Are they deciding that on balance, someone is going to take that money, so it may as well be them? More broadly, how can we help sport find better sponsors? We know we're in a very difficult financial position globally, and often when we hear from sports organisations about why they're working with certain organisations, it's because there isn't that much financial support available. So on balance, they've decided it's worth it. How many questions are two questions? I could go on. But this, I think, the timing of it, a couple of these stories coming in quite quick succession against the Patagonia and Patagonia story, quite a few corporations in the sport and apparel space, or corporations in the wider environmental space and sport intersecting. Just alignment of this is more of a trend. Are things moving forward with that? We'll keep an eye on it and see. So they're the three stories from our Climate of Sport hat-trick this week. They are the performance challenges for every World Cup team, Patagonia versus Patagonia, the story so far, and Broncos, Barca, and blemished business backers. We are going on now to a brilliant conversation I had with former England rugby star Ugo Monye about a new campaign by UN Women UK called Same Side. It's all about the manosphere. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. I really did, which I'm sure comes across. And we look forward to seeing you next week on the Climate of Sport pod.